Assalamualaikum and hi guys. There are various model evaluation. These various models are based on approaches, form and purpose of evaluation. These models are used for evaluate programs or activities in various fields such as politics, economics, law, culture and education. Evaluation program education is a process of description data collection and delivery information to decision makers to consider whether the program needs to be improved, discontinued or extended. Among the many figures in various models and approaches, one of the well-known figures of educational evaluation is Ralph W. Tyler. He argues that evaluation is a process of determining what a goal has been realized or not. Therefore, you must have heard of the Tyler model of evaluation before. So, let's check it out.
The old book entitled Basic Principles of Curriculum and Instruction, written by Tyler in 1949 to this day, is still a reference in the process of curriculum development. According to Tyler, the curriculum development model focuses on how to design the curriculum in accordance with the goals and mission of the educational institution. Tyler formulates the evaluation of learning outcomes from learning objective based on the taxonomy of learning objective developed by Bloom and Crowell. This approach was later named the Tyler Approach Model. Therefore, I will describe the Tyler model in evaluating learning outcomes and educational programs. Now, let's first look at the Tyler model in evaluating educational programs. Tyler argues that educational evaluation is a process for determining the extent to which educational goals for a school program or curriculum have been achieved. Tyler concentrates between what is expected and what is produced. The results obtained from this evaluation will be used to reformulate the objective. Tyler also uses pre-test and post-test as measurement techniques that can determine the changes that apply to an individual activity or program. 7 steps of Tyler's educational evaluation is: first, set common goals; second, categorize goals or objective; third, define goals in the context of behavioral terms; fourth is determine situation in which goal achievement can be demonstrated; fifth is develop or choose measurement techniques; sixth is collect performance data; and the last one is compare performance data with behaviors that describe the goals. Tyler explained that there is a need to observe the effective aspects in the development of learning goals in schools and emphasize the need for general purpose screening. In the field of education, the way to filter it is by asking meaningful questions about philosophy, social and pedagogy. After describing the goal-oriented evaluation steps, Tyler also described 6 goals of a school. First, mastering information; second, developing work habits and study skills; third, developing an effective way of thinking; fourth is internalizing attitudes, interests, appreciation and social sensitivity; fifth, maintaining physical health; and the last one is developing a philosophy of life. The longer we study, the more we can improve the philosophy of life from not knowing to knowing. Here is empirical methods for evaluating goals are as follows. First, collect data to describe the value of goals. Second, listen to opinions panels to review and evaluate objective. Third, conduct a study on documentation. And the last one is conduct a pilot study to see if the objectives are achieved. Be reminded that this model only measures the goal aspect, in other words, whether the evaluation goal set formally in the blueprint is achieved or not. This model will not measure what happens outside the formal goals of the program. For example, the evaluation of national exams aims to measure whether the value of student learning outcomes cumulatively reach grade A without measuring whether students who do not pass experience stress and others. Furthermore, the choice and strategy of data collection for this evaluation depends on the answers to several questions as follows. First, for whom the information is and who will use the evaluation. Second, what kind of information is needed. Third, how the information is used. Fourth, when information is needed. And the last one, what sources make it possible to conduct an evaluation. These questions are the main question for evaluating the program activity. The advantages of goal-oriented evaluation approach is advantages. The main strength of the goal-oriented evaluation approach is its flexibility. This approach is easy to understand and comprehend, easy to follow, easy to apply, and also easy to agree to study. This approach has stimulated the development of techniques, measurement, procedures, and instruments to evolve. There is a lot of literature on this approach. Many creative ideas and new models born from this approach have emerged. And with this approach, program owners can see more clearly the results of a program so that they can evaluate and weight a program. The disadvantages of goal-oriented evaluation approach. There are several emerging criticisms of this goal-oriented approach as expressed by Fitzpatrick, Sanders, and Worthen. This is seen as a weakness of the goal-oriented evaluation model born of Ralph W. Tyler as follows. First, the lack of a real evaluation component places more emphasis on measuring the goal of achievement than the value of the goal itself. Second, lack of standards for considering important gaps between observational results and performance level. Third is ignoring the value of the goal itself. Fourth is ignoring important alternatives in considering program planning. Fifth is forgetting the context of the object of evaluation is carried out. Sixth is ignoring important results obtained that are not disclosed in purpose. And the last one, leave evidence of program information that does not describe the purpose of the program. Now, I will describe the Tyler model in evaluating learning outcomes. According to Tyler, there are 4 things that are considered fundamental to developing a curriculum, namely define goals, determine the learning experience, organize the learning experience, and evaluation. So, firstly, we need to define goals to determine the direction and outcome of goals. There are several questions to make it easier to determine the purpose, namely, first, what is the direction of the student's education? Second, what skills must students have to learn? And third, from where and how do we determine the purpose of education? The above 3 questions can be used as a reference in determining the goal so that the desired goal can be focused and realized. In formulating the purpose, there are several things that need to be taken into account, such as student factors, school, current life, discipline of knowledge, philosophy, and psychology of learning. In determining the purpose, it depends on the philosophy of education being practiced. There are 3 objectives of the curriculum, namely discipline-oriented, child-centered, and society-oriented. Discipline-oriented is emphasizing on the mastery of existing theories in the discipline. Therefore, expert theory is taken into account in formulating the purpose. Child-centered means students mastery their own learning by building a natural curiosity and interest. Teachers only provide support and facilitate learning. Therefore, in determining the purpose must refer to the interests, needs, and abilities of students. Society-centered means centered on community life. Therefore, in formulating goals, more emphasis is given to community life. Curriculum objective must be in accordance with the environmental conditions of the community, the socio-economic conditions of the community, what is required and must be in accordance with the philosophy of education practice. pupils are part of society. Therefore, in setting the objective of the curriculum, we should consider various sources for the benefit of the individual and the interests of society. Now, we look at determine the learning experience. Learning experience is learning in a real life situation. Therefore, in formulating the curriculum, we need to pay attention to the educational background and experience of the students. Curriculum development needs to take into account students' perceptions so that they can be mentally and emotionally prepared in learning. Next is organize the learning experience. Organizing the learning experience is important because it guides the learning process that will be the learning experience for the students. It simplifies curriculum planning and the results can be maximized. It can be in the form of subjects or in the form of program. There are several principles according to Tyler in organizing the learning experience, such as the principle of vertical and horizontal continuity. Vertical means that a given learning experience must have the continuity necessary for the further development of the learning experience. For example, when a student is given a learning experience on the development of the ability to read community lesson materials, it should be believed that the learning experience will be needed to develop subsequent skills, such as the ability to solve social problems. The principle of horizontal continuity means that the experience given to students must be functional and useful to gain learning experience. In other fields, for example, learning experience in mathematics should be able to help gain learning experience in economics or another field. This principle or continuity has a close relationship. The only difference lies in the level of difficulty and the breadth of the scope. This means that every learning experience given to a student should also observe the level of development of the student. The learning experience given in the Year 3 class is necessarily different from the experience in the next class. Now, we look at the evaluation. Evaluation is done to determine whether the goals set in the curriculum can be achieved or not. There are two aspects that need to be considered, namely the evidence of the effectiveness of learning and the objective set. In fact, assessment assesses whether there has been a change in student behavior in accordance with the set goal. Assessment can use more than one measuring tool at a time. Assessment that is usually done is a formative or summative assessment. Formative assessment is a continuous assessment done after each learning session, while summative assessment is an end-of-year assessment such as the end-of-year examination, lower secondary examination (PMR), and Sijil Pelajaran Malaysia (SPM). Curriculum improvement will also be done directly and continuously through summative assessment methods. Now, let's see the strength of the Tyler model in evaluating learning outcomes. First is systematic in managing teaching and learning. Setting clear objectives and goals at the beginning of lesson planning helps teachers in setting learning outcomes. In addition, the content and methods chosen can be integrated and allow the result to be evaluated. Second is logic, easy and practical. Curriculum level planning that begins with the setting of teaching goals and objectives makes this model easy to accept and practice. This can produce directly relevant information. Third is students can interact with the external environment. This model places great emphasis on the active learning experience by students as the basis of the success of this model. Therefore, students have the opportunity to interact with the external environment during the teaching and learning process. So with this, students will be able to build critical thinking skills, help find information and instill interest and positive attitudes in students. Fourth is assessment oriented for teaching effectiveness. Tyler's model places great emphasis on assessment in an effort to improve a curriculum. Therefore, evaluation is done to see the effectiveness of a content and method based on the goals and objectives that have been determined. The results of the evaluation will certainly improve on the previous poor performance. Therefore, this model is still widely used in curriculum development in our country in an effort to compile a robust and quality curriculum. And the last one is determine the direction of the organization. The Tyler model can also determine the direction of an organization because of the nature of this model itself that can make a validation about the effectiveness of the organization. In addition, able to organize the objective and goals of the organization according to the priorities and objective of the evaluation objective. Okay, after looking at the advantages, let's look at the weaknesses of the Tyler model. As we know, the Tyler model has been the earliest model widely used in curriculum development in the country. However, there are some weaknesses that have been detected by critics of this model. First is too subject to objective. Setting teaching objective at an early stage apparently limits curriculum objective. The effect is to prevent educators from highlighting creativity. Second is too linear because it is bound by prescribed measures. Educators must follow the prescribed steps such as determining the objectives first, then selecting the content, setting the curriculum method, and finally making the assessment. Clearly, this model does not give freedom to educators to compile and process teaching materials. Third is exposed to political elements. This model is also said to be too open and exposed to external elements such as political influence that easily manipulate education. The impact is that individuals and those responsible for education lost the power to make decisions and determine the direction of national education development. And last one is too tied to subjects and exams. When too focused on the curriculum of a subject and examination for assessment purpose, then difficulties arise in writing behavioral objective. Next, let's look at the application of the Tyler model of evaluation in 21st century learning. In building the curriculum and teaching according to Tyler, there are 4 questions that need to be implemented at the basic level to ensure that the purpose of goal of teaching is achieved. Namely, what is the purpose of goal to be achieved? What lesson need to be taught to achieve that goal? How to deal with experience giving effectively, and how to know if a goal or goal has been achieved. Based on the 4 basic questions as mentioned earlier, can be linked to the teacher's teaching plan is according to the 4 basic principles of Tyler's model, namely teaching objective, teaching curriculum content, teaching methods, and assessment of learning outcome. Now, we look at the teaching objective. We need to define learning objective in planning, teaching, and learning. In 21st century learning, teachers plan objective and success criteria to be shared with students so that students are also aware of what will be learned and gained at the end of learning. Teachers need to plan learning activities that are characterized by 4C 1V elements, namely communication, collaborative, creative, and critical, in addition to the application of values. Teachers also plan classroom assessment activities as continuous assessment. Next is teaching curriculum content. Teachers need to implement teaching and learning by using learning aids ranging from small, medium to more complex units to facilitate learning based on different levels of ability of students. teachers use the 5W1H questioning method, which is question in the form of what, who, where, when, how, and why to stimulate high-level thinking. This technique allows you to understand a situation, to discern a problem by analyzing all the aspects. Next is teaching methods. In this regard, teachers need to determine teaching methods and techniques that are appropriate to the learning topic to get the best impact. Through teaching methods, the selection of books and teaching aids must be appropriate and meaningful. There are many teaching learning methods that can be used in conducting 21st century learning activities. When performing activities in groups, the 4C1B element can be achieved. The well-being of students as a whole can be seen as students work together to achieve learning outcomes. Example of activities are gallery walks, hot seats, and etc. Differentiated learning can also be applied according to the different levels of ability of student. And the last one is assessment of learning outcomes. Once the teaching and learning is implemented, the teacher needs to determine the outcome of the learning objective by making an assessment of the students. Assessment can be informative and summative. In addition, teachers are encouraged to make action research on the teaching and learning that has been implemented. Classroom assessment is a continuous assessment to find out the progress of students. Assessment can be conducted by observation, oral, or written. Teachers need to use professional judgment to provide the level of mastery of students according to the aspects assessed using assessment instruments. This given level of mastery is based on Bloom's taxonomy, taking into account the different ability levels of students. Recording instruments need to be created for reporting. It requires quality assurance and the cooperation of all parties involved. Assessment involves assessment as learning to help students develop their capacity, and assessment for learning because teacher uses assessment to make decisions to improve learning.
So, based on the explanation and discussion of this Tyler model of evaluation, we can find out about this subject or program-oriented evaluation from Tyler, describe the extent to which the objective of the program have been achieved. Evaluation as a systematic information search process about something to give value or decision whether goals have been met or not. Evaluation is also useful for alternative decision making that include three things, namely evaluation as a comprehensive systematic process. The process includes three steps. First, compile question. Second, collect data. And third, present information. Evaluation supports the decision-making process. This approach is easy to understand, follow, apply, and also easy to agree. This approach has stimulated the development of techniques, measurement procedures, and instruments to develop. So, this is the Tyler model of evaluation is all about. That's all. Thank you. Bye.